What is my favorite piece of advice about courageous conversations? For me, I tend to replace the word courageous with the word curious. I want to have a conversation, whether it's in a one-on-one or a group setting, or I can be curious and everyone around me, we can have a very open and transparent, curious conversation. And in fact, sometimes we all have the same point of view, but how we arrived at it, what we learned, what influenced us, what experiences we had, were very different on how we landed there. Or it could be a very different point of view based on those same influences, learning, and experiences. But it's that curiosity that allows that to come out. So in a trusted and safe environment where everyone's respectful for one another, I think the secret sauce is about that curiosity. At the end of the day, we all have blind spots. And if you're curious, you can start to see things that help eliminate and reduce those blind spots that we all have. So that's what I found helpful as I've had these, what we can title as courageous conversations. It's about being curious. Hopefully you found that helpful. In the spirit of curiosity, if there's something you're doing that you think I could benefit from, certainly let me know that as well. I appreciate it, and best of luck to you in your conversations.
Is it better to have small group discussions or one-on-one conversations? I'm going to be non-committal here and say both, because I've done both, and I have had different experiences. In the small group conversations that I've had, I've really had to kickstart the process because I think people are reluctant to share openly about what they see from a diversity and inclusion standpoint at Church and Dwight and what they think we can do better. Eventually the ball gets rolling and people feed off of one another, and those sessions have been very effective. The one-on-one conversations are a bit different. There I can really get to the essence of how people are feeling about being a person of color, for example, at Church and Dwight. And they will really go deep and share with me what more we can do to be a more welcoming environment for all people and all diverse types here at Church and Dwight.
The question is, how long should I schedule my conversation? I would say, personally, even though ironically I don't have a team, I've been involved in them and think they end up being best in a other scheduled meeting that you might have with your employee, and doing that kind of a non specifically scheduled context seems to maybe lead to more openness and willingness to have that conversation. That's my personal opinion. However you'd like to do it is up to you, and good luck, and reach out if you need anything else.
What do you do if no one has anything to share? So here's a recent example. When we hosted a courageous conversation on the topic of microaggressions, and no one shared that they had witnessed or been challenged with the topic, I broke the ice by sharing my own personal experience with a microaggression. I described how it impacted me and what I learned and how it made me a better leader. It was not an easy thing to share, but that honesty and transparency opened the dialogue for others to contribute to our courageous conversation.
What if someone asks me a question I don't know the answer to? Well, that's okay, but I would acknowledge that you don't know the answer. Then maybe offer that you'll check in with your HR representative or someone from the D&I Council to get some more information and come back to the group at a later date. Alternatively, you may want to offer it up to the rest of the group to see if someone else has a perspective.
Why don't we just have the HR business partners lead these conversations and report back on what they heard from the business? Well, the short answer is because leaders lead. And you and us are such a core and critical component of the culture at Church and Dwight. People want to hear what you have to say. They want to hear the facts behind what you want to tell them. And they're expecting you to give a clear and concise answer. I know these conversations are uncomfortable sometimes. I know they're difficult. We're not used to them. As we move through these conversations, they get easier over time. I've heard some great examples of how inspiring, how engaging some folks are having and leading these conversations. So it's up to you, it's up to us to have this culture at Church and Dwight, and people want to hear what you have to say. And if you still have an uncomfortable or difficult time to do it, then talk to your leader, and he or she can give you examples of how other people are doing it throughout the company that are just doing a great job.
If someone says something offensive, do something about it. What you do may depend on the circumstances. It may make sense to call it out by, for example, saying something like, "You may not have known this was offensive, but it impacted me. It made me feel uncomfortable." You may also need to point out that their comment doesn't align with the company's culture. Depending on what was said, you may need to revisit it with HR in the room. Another approach may be to let everyone know that you are ending or changing the conversation because it's headed in an unproductive direction, and follow up after the conversation. But please do something.
What advice would you give if you were the one who says something offensive but didn't know it at the time? I would say be open to the feedback and learn from it. I'll share an experience I had. I made a comment that I'm colorblind, meaning that I see people and not their color. Well, someone pulled me aside and shared with me that saying that one is colorblind is actually very offensive to a person of color because it denies their experiences, traditions, and their uniqueness. Well, when I tell you I was stunned because offending someone was the absolute last thing I ever intended to do, I thank the person for sharing with me. We're all human and may say things that inadvertently offend someone at times. It's how we respond to that feedback that truly makes a difference. To this day, I'm grateful to the person who chose to share the feedback with me. It has allowed me the opportunity to continue to learn and grow.
So the question is, how do I prepare for these courageous conversations? I would say that we start with the mindset, knowing that we are a people-first organization where our culture is representative of what we all bring. So we want to start from a place of care and compassion. It may be courageous because it's new conversation, but at the core, it's simply a conversation that is candid and really attempts to bring our whole selves to work. I would want to start from a place where we want to know the person, their background, their story, and encourage those seemingly messy, uncomfortable, but really essential conversations. I would also want to reflect and be mindful of my own biases, our biases, and how does that make us feel? Does it make us feel anxious, confident, curious? Well, the good news is if we set our intentions up front and open with vulnerability and candor, speak truly from a position of curiosity and care, most folks do open up and are keen to have these conversations, and they feel encouraged to speak out and speak up. As an org, this may be a new muscle for us, and we have some brilliant resources both within our reach in-house like the DE&I Connect page and some external ones like the NPR Code Switch podcast. Lastly, I will say that we are here to get educated, become more mindful and purposeful so we all can truly bring our whole selves to work, because what we say and how we say really matters a lot. Let's do this together.